All right, hey guys, what's going on? This is the Chris Fluck Podcast, episode 5. Today, we have a special guest here. My friend Matt Zimfer's in town. So, Matt, what do you think of the studio?
Well, I wore my brick house shirt to represent, but I didn't realize it was going to be 20 degrees in the barn.
Yeah, we're
here,
outside. So. We're doing this live from a horse farm where I live here in Pennsylvania, and it's a little chilly if you catch our breath coming up here on the monitors. That's why here. So, first things first, though, Matt. Now, he works in New York City as a firefighter. Want to kind of get into maybe your background a little bit, what led you into that, or what you did even beforehand?
Yeah, I was born and raised here in Hellertown, Pennsylvania. Went to Saucon Valley High School and graduated back in '94. Always had an interest in getting into the fire service, and I volunteered locally. Went to the paramedic program at St. Joseph's Hospital in Lancaster, and I worked in the city of Allentown and various other agencies throughout the Lehigh Valley. Went to the police department here in Lower Saucon for a short stint of time too, all while testing for the fire department. Always a goal and a dream of mine, if you will. So I know I tested for Denver, Portland, Maine, New York, and Philly, and then right before 9/11 happened, I got the green light to go. And I was actually, during 9/11, I was working in the capacity of an EMS as a paramedic. So.
In Allentown or in New York?
In Allentown.
In Allentown, yeah.
So.
Then after that, New York?
I got the call then. I was actually the second class in the academy after post 9/11. And then I've been there ever since. So it's going on 17 years. Yeah.
How many years you staying in the game there? What do you think?
We can go at 20, but like 25 is usually the sweet spot, the magic number.
So you got some time yet, man?
Got some time.
All right, so today, though, I mean, we're going to spend a few minutes here just talking about, well, obviously we got his background there, but I guess the main focus of today is just going to kind of be on talking about the mindset that goes into, you know, what he's doing on his job. Obviously, the physical fitness and the training stuff, that's kind of how I think, I mean, we grew up in the same town. I was friends with his sister growing up, so, I mean, we knew each other and all that, but I think we really probably got to know each other with just fitness pretty much kind of brought us together. Yeah. A few years ago, we went to Indianapolis and presented some stuff. I mean, there was people there, it was the FDIC. I mean, that's an international thing because there was a guy there, I think, from Korea.
Yeah, they said, it was Korea.
South Korea.
Yeah.
And some Canadians were there. I remember that. I mean, they're.
Yeah,
but anyway,
a lot of Canadians. I think they said it's the second biggest conference in the.
How many were there? Do you remember how many people were there? It was pretty.
Well, the hands-on is. I'm thinking it's like 10 or 12,000. But then after the hands-on, 2-day hands-on, it opens up to 60, 70,000 people. I think flocking. You know, you do it in Indianapolis because it's centrally located. So, but.
Yeah, we did the hands-on training part. We just got to work with a bunch of firefighters and just talked about some of the tactical stuff that goes along with just getting yourself physically prepared for the job, but then also the mental side of stuff. So I'm just going to probably just dove into this book again. It was Malcolm Gladwell's Blink, and in this book he talked about basically just kind of set the stage for a story. And there's like implicit knowledge, there's decision making, and all this other stuff going on. And it's like, you know, how do you explain? You know, you're in you're in a certain situation here, and I'll like equate it to, you know, maybe coaching a sport, say, where it's like you're thinking without thinking, all these things that are going through your head, like you're playing quarterback, say, Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, there's like 27 different things he's checking the box on, and all of it happens in like a split second. I think with your job, some of these things happen even a little bit faster than say, you know, I've experienced with coaching sports. And I know there was a psychologist, Gary Klein, he did some studies, I think it was in the 70s and 80s, on firefighters, and, you know, one of the examples he had was, you know, a guy that's a veteran, you know, they all went into a building. What they thought it was a kitchen fire. So they get in there. Something was a little bit off right away is what he said. They go in there and they start fighting these fires, and it didn't respond to the fire the way a typical kitchen fire would. They were going to douse it. Usually that helps a little bit. It didn't happen. It was quiet. They didn't hear the, I guess, you know, the sounds that you would normally hear. And it was super hot. So the guy was in there. He had his ear flaps up, I think is what he said. He felt the temperature. He didn't hear the sound. It was super quiet. It didn't respond to the fire. He just told everybody to get out. And a few moments later, the whole floor collapsed because the fire was actually underneath. It wasn't at the level that they were on. So, I mean, there was just something in that man's mind that he just went in there and he saw a situation and then kind of, you know, at the drop of a hat or however you want to say it, he got his guys out of there and he was able to he was able to basically have everybody survive and everybody got out of there without any injuries or any kind of harm. But, going into something like that, just kind of having the power to just take a glance at something and realize what's going on. I mean, that kind of comes with basically what I want to ask you then is that from day one to like day now, you said 17 years in the game. How long does it take to even kind of develop some of those skill sets that go in there?
Well, I walked into the firehouse after a 2-month academy, and the first thing our lieutenant says is, "I'm here to make sure you get paid, and we're going to try to make sure you go home at the end of the day." And he goes, "If I could give you anything, it would be 10,000 calls, because you go through all your probationary training, but the only way to really deal with different situations is the experience you gain, and having that 10,000 calls and seeing a lot of normal things or abnormal things throughout your 20-year career, and then you get that the instinct or the hair standing on the back of your neck, knowing something's not right, and then a lot of times it's best, and we still do it now too, is remove ourselves and try to regroup, and sometimes it works out, other times it doesn't. In this case,
yeah, I mean, that was just one story that I came across, and it was like, this guy said it was ESP is kind of what his answer was when the psychologist asking the man that was in charge, he credited ESP, and the psychologist was like, he didn't really want to accept that. He wanted to kind of dive into it even more, and most of the time people think that the decisions we make, the best decision is made with like tons and tons of time, but really it's those things that you just get that certain feel sometimes, and you can't explain why, but you just know that it's the right thing to do, and then you go about doing it. But yeah, so I mean that was one. They were calling it just kind of tacit knowledge. It's that ability to like not you don't have a real answer for the why you're doing it, but it just is something that kind of happens.
Like a gut instinct.
And yeah, I mean, we're saying it's 10,000 calls or whatever it may be, but it's like, is there a way you could even prepare some of that stuff, or is it that like technically just on the job? Like, can you train and improve that stuff?
Well, I like getting into the whole mental aspect and where it started from. Even in my line of work, from a tactical sense and an emergency services sense. So, like your military and your sports all have coaches and psychologists and sports performance, but nobody really addressed the fire department. And actually, back in the 90s, Dr. Askin from the Pennsylvania State Police actually wrote a book. It was called The Warrior Mindset, and it really never took off. And then one of the guys that I work with was sitting around one day, and he was an avid baseball player, went to college, played ball, and he got into the book, The Mental Game of Baseball. He was also a Marine Corps, major in the Marine Corps, and they read the book called The Warfighter. So he goes, I don't know why in a job like ours in emergency services, why it hasn't been addressed, because we really like sports, we have like a triangle. So being good at your skill set, or a linebacker, or a wide receiver, a baseball player, outfielder, having a sound foundation, a knowledge of your practice or your skill set is key. Also, why we're here and why we met is the physical aspect of it, but the most important part of it is your mindset, because like in our job and a lot of the police departments too, there's so many it's an unsafe environment, and there's so many variables, and it's so dynamic that the equipment, you can't really rely on equipment and technology. So the one thing for certain is it's going to remain the same is your mindset. Like General Mattis said, the most important 6 inches on the battlefield is between your ears. So that's what they've gotten this movement going the last probably 4 or 5 years, and it's now breaching into the fire service, and I know they got into our job in New York City, and it's branching out from there.
I mean, but even going with like preparation and stuff like that, we're just going to talk about the experience stuff, getting your mindset and all that, but then also too in regards to like training and stuff like that, we're talking about the fitness part of it, but there's like this whole stress inoculation thing that you read the book. I only saw a little bit of it. I think it was Dave Grossman, and he was basically talking about these heightened sense of arousal where, like, say if you're playing a sport, people talk about being in the zone, you don't remember what's going on. Everything seems to slow down. And when you hear these guys, these athletes or whatever, talk about this stuff, you're like, yeah, all right, come on. Like everything was in slow motion and all this other stuff. But I mean, it's out there, and it's kind of proven that like there's a sweet spot where if you're like 115 to 145 beats per minute, like that seems to be the sweet spot. And I don't know if you would agree with those numbers, kind of, but
yeah, there's actually like they call it like there's a bell curve. So there's a primary arousal, which from a sports standpoint, whether you're getting ready for your wrestling meet, guys put their headphones on, listen to music, whatever you got to do to get amped up. And then same with in the fire service or even the police department, we get that initial call or the bells go off. We have that primary arousal, which you do need a certain amount of arousal. We need to act, we need to perform. And then there's also called the secondary arousal where when something goes bad, whether you're wrestling, you're on your back, something goes bad in the police department, things go bad in a domestic call, a fire service, we get potentially trapped or lost. You get that secondary arousal, and then there's they call it the bell curve. And ideally, we try not to get on the other side of the bell curve because very few people then come back on the other side of the bell curve. Now, how to handle that? There's some preventive things to do, like a lot. We do a lot of training, like even in the military. Like a lot of the special ops will go 6 to 8 months pre-deployment training before a 6 month to a year training. So they're almost just training just as much before they go away as they are. So being sound and your skill set and that muscle memory is going to be key. And a lot of it, doing a blueprint in your head, if you will, of going through various different calls and situations and having a plan. Like the Jocko's book too. A lot of it is a balance too. Having a plan, but also being able to deviate from the plan too is key.
The dichotomy.
Yeah. So, and then there's things once we start going over that, we find ourselves going over the bell curve, how to reel ourselves back in and reset too.
So I didn't get into that too much because, like, we said that whatever 115 to 145, and then they were talking about I think they did some work with police departments, and it's like 175 beats per minute. You're going to get into a spot where you're like total cognitive breakdown. You're not going to be able to function right. You might even get a little bit aggressive. So we were talking this morning when we were working out. Police chases, there's some departments that are like, we're not even going to have our guys pursue in certain cases because they're, it's not about what's going on during that chase. It's what's going to happen after the chase. 2 or 3 guys together, they're kind of amping each other up. The person driving that other vehicle, he's already amped up, so they're both probably above that 175. They're probably not going to act rationally. They might even act aggressive towards one another, and a mistake could happen then. Yeah. So it's like, obviously you want to stay under that. How do you stay under that? I mean, and how do you even, obviously with some training, we'll talk about stress inoculation, trying to, put yourself in these situations where the first time you experience something, you might be at 180, the next time 168, the next time 155, and then eventually you're going to get yourself into that sweet spot. But it's like, how do they recommend? Say you are in that state, you never saw something before, something totally blew your mind. What do they teach you on trying to bring it back?
They said 115 you start losing all gross motor skills at 115 beats per minute. At 145 you start losing all fine motor skills. At 115 you start losing all gross motor skills, and at 175 beats per minute of a stress-induced heart rate, you start losing all cognitive thinking. So being good at your skill set, being comfortable before you go into a situation, be prepared for a football game. All this plays into to reducing the stress level. Also, they get into imaging stuff and visualizing or picturing yourself being there will also print that blueprint, form that blueprint. But once you start hitting over that secondary arousal, going over that bell curve, really they get into, believe it or not, there's a lot of yoga and breathing. But
in that moment, though, if you're on a call, do they remove you from the situation then? If you think you need to be, is there ever a case where you, what happens if you're in a situation, you're up there and you're not even, let's say your buddy's there too, right next to you, and he's like, hey man, does anybody get pulled out of a situation if they're, if it's too stressful for somebody? Or?
Well, not sometimes, very rarely, because we do a lot of training and preparation for that too. Again, I and everybody else has their go-to plan, which 95% of the time will work. It's just then trying to adapt and overcome outside that 95%. But what we do is a lot of breathing. If things aren't going well in the situation, we'll remove ourselves totally, like the call you were explaining before.
Got it.
So sometimes reset, focus on our breathing, and a lot of times the newer guys will allow them get in and they'll start off a more simple call and work their way up before it's more of an intense situation. So a lot of touch too, like you go over the even with the baseball, you see the coach and the catcher come out. The first thing they do a lot of times is they put their hand on them. A lot of that, just that's simple crazy. Things reset. But
I forgot about that. You talked about that in Indianapolis too. Then we're even leading into, obviously we got this, so that whole thing though too, talking about the Indianapolis thing, we just did some fitness stuff, but right outside where we were, they had, you know, fake buildings there and stuff like that. So they were kind of doing some simulations almost.
Mm-hmm.
In those cases, I mean, is that training at a level that's going to get you aroused to a certain point? Like doing some stuff like basically stress inoculation training. You guys do it often, or you guys are getting calls so much that it's like you guys are in the game a lot? And
we do the volume a lot. We're fortunate enough to get the call volume, and and
so if you're not getting the volume though,
the exposure, there's really,
tough.
It's really tough to recreate.
Yeah.
You know, you can drill, you can train all you want, but you don't add in, you never really factor in that real life stressful situation or stress that, you know, at the end of the day you may or may not be going home. So that kind of changes a lot too. Because
we did, I mean, even we talked a little bit too. It's like, obviously what you just said, you might not be going home. I don't have experience and stuff like that, but even just like with coaching athletics and stuff, say it was with wrestling or football, it's like you want to make these practices and these training sessions, sometimes they're slower where you're teaching new skills, and other times it's like we're going to try to make this thing as stressful as possible, put these kids in uncomfortable situations, see how they respond to it, and kind of go from there. So I mean, I think that style of training is kind of, it probably started in the military, it probably started with the fire, and it kind of is starting to trickle down into other areas where even there's probably businesses right now that probably put their managers and their leaders. Yeah. I think we both listen to Jocko, and we jokingly use all of his terms, but you know, dichotomy and all this other stuff. But anyway, I mean, it's true. It's like all this stuff is starting to trickle down in all these other areas to the point where I think even people could probably use it in their everyday life, where I think the more you're exposed to certain situations, the more stressful they are, the better you're going to be prepared to handle them in the future. You know, removing yourself from certain situations too, not physically, but being able to kind of see the whole field. You know, take a step back, maybe take those deep breaths you were talking about. Then you could kind of see everything unfold, as opposed to that like tunnel vision where all you could see here, where it's like maybe you do just need to take one step back and you'll be able to see everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
we use a phrase too, we take time to save time. So before we get off the rig and go running or sprinting into a untenable situation, I'll take my time and take 30 seconds to put my gloves on outside and, you know, get an overview of what's going on. That 10, 15 seconds I waste now will save me in the back end, because I might have missed something going on. So
you're probably amped up getting out of the truck or getting out of the vehicle to the point where, you know what, if you just take that time, is it going to help kind of bring the arousal level down a little?
Yeah, I mean, some guys need more arousal. Like, I mean, naturally, when the bells go off, and then you start getting what the report of the call is. You get a couple other calls going into it. A lot of times you know what you're going into. Sometimes guys got to amp themselves up more. Sometimes guys got to bring themselves down.
Makes sense.
I mean, for the first 17 years, a lot of times I had to bring myself down and relax myself. So.
Yeah, and speaking of the relaxing, bringing yourself under control, huge part of what you do. I know that anybody that's in the area has probably seen this man walking his dog. I mean, when you would see him around occasionally, working out, you know, taking his dog for long walks, yoga, strength training. I mean, a little bit of everything going on there now.
Yeah, I mean,
motivation behind that, is that just to be the best at your job? Is it for like stress reduction? Is it for everything? You know.
That's a good question, because I mean, I try to influence other people, and unfortunately in the area, from, you know, my profession and the you know, first responder emergency services in general, it's a tough sell to the fitness, although very important. I try to do it for my main reason is for my job, but I thoroughly enjoy working out and training. Do I always do? No. I mean, a lot of it is just habit building. I think a lot of it too is personality too. You know, I've always been growing up energized or seeking to better myself and do something different. A lot of it just get motivated, and then motivation turns into discipline, and then just discipline turns into everyday habit. Whether it be with your fitness, your diet, but all along not trying to be too regimented, too strict, too rigid too.
Dichotomy.
That's right. I realized too.
Seriously,
everything, even with like diet too. Like I try to stick around 85. Just a
balancing act.
85 to 90%. You know, do I go out and have my Otis Spunkmeyer now and again? Got my little sweet tooth.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about that. A couple years ago in Indy, man. I swear to God, first off, if I go in on something, it's all or nothing kind of. So it's like I won't even have, Yeah, we'll just talk about cookies here. If I eat one, I'll probably have like 11 of them. Well, I'm just gonna have 0. Like, there's nothing really in between. So, we're in Indianapolis. We didn't have the same we're in the same hotel but different rooms. You know, we're all going up together. You know, Matt sees me grabbing a few cookies.
I get out of the elevator.
12 minutes
Chris
later,
is elbow deep in the cookie jar.
12 minutes later, I sneak back down for a few more. Matt comes down to go meet up with some other buddies and caught me with my hand in the cookie jar. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, yeah, certain, I guess, dichotomy. But anyway, we talked about this a few weeks ago, maybe even it's been months now, but I don't know if you remember the conversation. I just thought of this now. It just popped in my mind. You were talking about discipline, motivation, and all this other stuff, and I think you had something. It was almost like almost like a hierarchy, or like the way that things go in terms of like, is it like what's better? Is it motivation? Is it discipline? Does one lead to the other?
Right.
Yeah.
Like motivation, a lot of motivation will come and go. And
it seems that it's like extrinsic. Like, it's usually the motivation stuff is like, you might need that music to get pumped up, or you might need to lose 12 pounds, or you have a wedding coming up and you want to get in shape or something like that. But like, the discipline seems to be more intrinsic, and like kind of what drives you in here to like,
right,
what's your reasons that you're doing this stuff. You know, I mean, you have a job where your life literally depends on it every day. You probably want to be at your best optimal, fitness level, right? I mean,
like everything else, like, what's your why?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Why are you doing it? I mean, I know people struggle to get to stay in shape or get in the gym and make it a weekly habit. Whether it's 2 or 3 times a week. But I thoroughly do enjoy it. So it comes probably easier for me. Do I feel like working out every day? No. That's what the discipline. There's
a certain discipline component to it.
Yeah.
So I think too, like what you're saying too, and I agree, because I think a lot of people blame motivation. Not having motivation, needing motivation from somebody else, somebody like me that's like a trainer, works with people, and it's always tough. It always would put me in a tough spot because I can't really give people motivation. I mean, you hope that you give them some good workouts and stuff like that, and just give them a reason to come in, other than it just they have an appointment and they have to. But like, yeah, so it's just tough. The motivation part of it is like, motivation's only going to get you so far. I think it's discipline that's going to get you up out of bed at whatever time to go work out before you have to go to work and do all the other stuff, because everybody has busy lives, I think.
So you get a new client, can you tell right off the bat like who's going to stick it out versus who's going to be a short timer? I know we're rounding the end of January now, so statistically people dip off, but
so
can you tell?
Yeah, I don't have a high volume of people that come in, just because the way that the gym's set up. It's only like, by appointment only stuff, so it's not like a commercial gym where we got a ton of people coming in. In that situation in the past, you probably could tell pretty quick, but then now it's like, I don't know, you just got to feel people out and you got to work with them, and I'll bring up some Jocko again, right? Because I think everything in life is kind of like, you have to build these relationships with people, and I think most of the time, I don't want to say you have to like trick people or manipulate people at all, but you are kind of flanking people, in the sense that you don't want to come straight at everybody if they're like a little bit unsure of something. So you got to kind of be careful, and you got to kind of like almost coddle that a little bit, and just kind of not say anything too crazy. It's going to turn them off from doing it. Maybe come at it from a different angle where it's like, I don't want to, a female might say, I don't want to get big and bulky. Well, it's like, maybe we'll just practice this a little bit. Hey, about some push-ups, something like that, where it's like you're still doing some great exercises, but you're not, you're not going to have them get bulky. When really at the end of the day, if you start working out and you eat right, you're probably not going to get bulky. You're probably going to trim down. So you could get stronger, you can lift heavy weights, right, get your eating right, and you could like trim down. So anyway, I just kind of building relationships with people. So I think that just came with experience too. I don't think in the beginning, I won't even say that I'm good at it now, but it's like, you just got to kind of figure things out with more experience.
But there's no like one personality trait that you pick off from somebody?
I guess if people just continually blame other things, then yeah, maybe that person. It's like it's never, it's not their fault for anything. I guess
Right. Yeah.
Where, yeah, because at the end of it too, it is you, and you make these decisions. Yeah, yeah. I don't want to say there's like a special gene or anything, but yeah, just kind of whatever gets people going.
Well, even going back to the mental performance stuff, and who following the guys in the special operations stuff, and there's really no it's hard to tell. There's really no one personality characteristic trait of who makes it, who doesn't. They really don't, But they say, the old phrase, "Get comfortable being uncomfortable," and a lot of people they see, like I talked to a Navy SEAL guy, the guy that graduated top in his class, he literally got abandoned by his parents and lived in a van on a beach in California. He goes, what are you going to do to this guy? No matter where he goes, it's
it's better. Almost.
Better.
Yeah.
And I took a conference to work too. It's called MPI training too, and we had the sports psychologist for the Mets there.
Nice.
Said, who's the toughest person you ever met? And he goes, Bartolo Colon. He goes, the guy grew up, had nothing in Dominican Republic, and a guy. I don't think he got. A guy floats here on a raft and has nothing. You're not going to dent this guy and phase the guy. So he said he'll pitch 3 strikes and walk 2 people, and he's right back on track again. So
that's interesting.
It's the ability, the whole mental thing is just the ability to deal with adversity in your life.
Because I didn't. I remember you talking about that before, but I don't really pay attention to baseball too much. But I did 10, 12 years ago. But Colon had he had some good years, and then he fell off the map, and then he just had a resurgence later in his career. And he's not really. Yeah, no, that was interesting though, because those down years probably didn't even affect him at all, because he was probably still living good. You ever see his physique?
Yep.
He's eating good. He's eating good.
He's getting into the Otis Spunkmeyer too.
Yeah, he didn't really care. He probably had a couple years off. Was cool with it. No, that's interesting. And we I forget what that. We had a good transition there, but we just kept talking. Being in control, being in command, but being out of control. I forget what we were just saying there, where it's like, I don't remember. But anyway, I want to kind of transition a little bit of that and just like some leadership stuff there, because we were talking about some things, and it just kind of triggered that thought where I think even with sports, say I'm coaching a team, you're an assistant coach, which is just pretty much what I was the whole time. You're going to have some coaches that are going to want to micromanage every situation. Then you're going to have other coaches that hire a bunch of guys that they're going to trust and kind of just be the overseer and make sure everything goes well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that with you, in your line of work as well?
We do. Unfortunately, a lot of the fire service went to the micromanaging, where they, and a lot of, they say like OSHA and the NFPA, which are a lot of guidelines, they kind of corral you into doing one way, not thinking. So not now what happens is, because I have to follow these guidelines and all these SOPs, instead of allowing you to think on your own, guys are waiting to be told what to do. And that's, I know what Jocko gets into his book too. If you're gonna micromanage people, heavily, they're going to wait. Nothing's going to get done, and they're going to wait for you to tell them to do it. Where the whole premise behind it is, you as a supervisor or a coach, you can only supervise or lead 4 to 6 to 8 men.
Yeah.
So you're not going to have control over everybody. So you have to delegate, and the whole hierarchy, or the chain of command in the fire service too. But then that's a balance too. Sometimes you can't give them too much freedom too, and the ownership, and you have to reel it in. And,
I was going to say dichotomy again.
Back to dichotomy, yeah. But it's true.
Yeah, no, seriously. And it was like too, you brought up like people, even with the fitness stuff like that, or you want to try to dive into things. Maybe this is where I was going with it too before, was like, knowing somebody's why. And it talked, say you can only handle, people can handle, obviously, some people could probably work with 12 people, other people could maybe manage 4 people, whatever it is. But let's just say there's like 6 to 10 people, whatever, 6 people is a sweet spot. After that, basically with those 6 people, you want to explain to them why we're doing everything, so that you can trust them to lead and act in an appropriate way. So if you don't do that, they're probably going to wait around, like you were saying. They're not going to want to act independently, because they have somebody usually overseeing them. And if this person's on them all the time about things, you're like, why am I going to do this? He's just going to give me a bunch of crap anyway.
Right.
I'm going to wait. Then they could kind of play it off and not take ownership in the fact, and then say, well, we didn't get directions, or nobody told us to do that, or whatever. So, yeah. I think, too, it just kind of takes strength. It takes strength to kind of let go as a leader and trust the guys that you have there, because they're an extension of you.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't blame people underneath you. That first book from Jocko is Extreme Ownership. It's always going to come back to you no matter what. So you can't blame the guys up or down the chain of command, I guess.
I guess people do it for different reasons too. Whether it's a private business and it's his baby, and he wants to have his hands in everything, or you see it in emergency services too. In the fire department, police department, you get a guy that's on a power struggle too. He thinks he's got to control everything. But you're best off giving guys through training and trust, giving them freedom to operate, and then if things arise and we roll with it, we improvise or adapt and overcome. But that's what everybody thinks the military is. It's one general
pointing out everybody and telling them what to do, and it's really not the case in the military. But these people are going into it highly trained, and their skill set is second to none through all the drills and training. So their anxiety's down, and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
And it's better as an assistant. Like, I was only an assistant coach, like I said, so it's like it's just better if somebody's not pretty much up your ass all the time,
right?
And they give you some freedom to coach the kids or do whatever you want to do. So there's two different there's a few different coaches that I've worked with, and there's some that are super successful and others that aren't. And the ones that were just kind of, everybody had a role, everybody knew what to do, they knew why it was set up that way, and we just went with it, and there was a certain freedom, and everybody had fun, and it was great, so.
And you say there's, like he says too, there's really no bad boss, there's no bad supervisor, there's no bad employees, and no bad athlete, no bad fireman. It's usually a bad coaching.
It's a leadership thing.
It's a leadership thing, and you have to own it.
No bad teams, just bad leaders, or something like that. Yeah.
And giving them, the why we talked about before is different. What motivates you for fitness, but the why, explaining somebody and telling somebody to do something and giving them the why attached to it, I guess it validates or they're understanding what the end goal is, their mission statement, if you will, and it makes it a lot easier to get some productivity out of people, and then with them to comply with it as well. But,
now, you asked me about a certain personality trait that shows up in people around the New Year. Is there a certain personality trait that you think that you've seen where guys that want to climb the ladder, so to speak, in the hierarchy of promotions and all that stuff? Do you see some good and some bad, I imagine, in that regard? Or is there a certain trait that you see in some people that, like, a young guy comes in and you can kind of see?
Well, fortunately,
for the right reasons or wrong reasons, I guess.
The emergency services is full of Type A personality people, so you're going to get that strong personality, Type A personality coming into it, and some to varying degrees or other. We do a pretty good job at in the Fire Academy of humbling people like the military and bringing them down and realize it's not all about you, and it's a team effort, team sport, if you will.
Yeah.
So we kind of, and even within the firehouse, we knock them down a few pegs too.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that. But that same personality trait that makes them good at their job, that makes them can be tough to deal with and prideful, and lack of humility also allows them to be good at their job too. So
I don't want to say it again, but you know what I'm going to say.
Dichotomy. Yeah, it is, and that's everything. Even before the book came out, just life.
But now we got a term for it, and especially since we listen to this,
we're gonna roll with it.
But obviously there might be some great leaders, some bad leaders, whatever. But I was just wondering too, where even like different motivations in people. Do you see? I don't want to say people are content, but some people might just be like, you know what, this is my position, and I really enjoy it, and I'm going to do this. Like, there's a little bit of that, and then there's other guys that kind of want to, I don't want to say step on people either, or people want to rise. Being a good teammate's probably going to get you climbing that ladder a little bit like that, but also there's probably some people that just get in a position that probably shouldn't be.
Right.
Does that stuff weed itself out over time?
Yeah, in the fire service, it's strength in numbers. So you're going to be the one guy that stands out.
Not that there's going to be a coup of some sort, but if there's enough guys that hey, we're not responding too well to this, or.
And there's a hierarchy in the firehouse too. So a lot of guys have been there for 15 years, 20 years. Some guys will get promoted and study. So you study from the fire service. It's about a year and a half of study. You go to lieutenant, then captain. So you get pulled out of your firehouse. So if I was to study tomorrow, I get pulled out of my firehouse, and I could go to Staten Island, Brooklyn, no matter what.
Right.
So I come into your firehouse, and a lot of it's time based there. So you could have.
So they'll take somebody from another area, bring them into a new one. So there's already firehouse politics, so to speak, in this place, and they'll bring somebody from the outside potentially in and try to put them in a leadership position.
Yes, because they don't want you in charge of people that you were. Me, for instance, 17 years as a fireman in the same house. I wouldn't get promoted to lieutenant and stay there.
Got it.
Because they don't want you out hanging, in charge in a supervisor role of guy you were buddies with, and now
Interesting. I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah. So, and that's the way the military is too. You're not allowed to fraternize with enlisted as an officer. So, but we do a pretty good job of bringing guys down, and like the personality traits, you're going to get different personalities. I'm going to work with 50 guys. There's 50 different personalities, and like I said, everybody's on the same page, and humble. And
boy, so how many firefighters are in the city?
I think with I think it's just under 10,000 total citywide. So there's like 2,400 on at one given time. So.
You talked about volume earlier. I mean, just to give people an idea on what kind of. So you're in the Bronx?
So I got out of the Proby school, and I got assigned to the firehouse in the Bronx. I've been there for 17 years.
And call volume? What are we talking in, say, 24-hour period?
Between the engine and the ladder, we're doing a year 7,500, 8,000 calls. So the engine runs a little bit more than we do. So we're doing nuts. We're doing about 12 to 15 on a 24-hour shift.
So you guys are definitely. I mean, you don't have to worry about. In terms of just the low call volume areas, they might have to kind of focus a little bit more on the whole training and stuff like that, a little bit more than you guys, just because you're in the game so much.
We dig at the volume, and we do the training too. Right. Just the old saying goes, you can't train too much for a job that can kill you. So you're really never going to overtrain. So we try to create that blueprint and that muscle memory, and what you just said that translates into just feeling comfortable on a day-to-day basis. But we are fortunate to have the call volume, and we're fortunate enough to have the oddball situations too that you have to then deal with.
There's certain things that when you signed up to that you're able to train for now, and with the experience you're able to train for. But there's certain things too that I'm sure back in early 2000s that you didn't really think about. I mean, we're talking about I think it was a Newsweek article that talked about, I think they called it the second wave of terror, where there was a lot of, after the September 11th attack in New York City. I mean, the stuff was crazy. I mean, we were talking 70 different types of cancers that they found. I guess that they kind of pinpointed just towards people that were affected by it. Mm-hmm. There's the deaths going on. There's like the burning jet fuel, all this other stuff. And then you said the fires burned for 90 days?
Yeah, they said approximately 90 days.
So all this stuff is going on. I mean, we have a friend. I mean, I used to work with him. I mean, he just worked in the city and got a type of, I think lymphoma, just from his doctors think, it's just from being in the city, kind of breathing and consuming that stuff. So, I mean, you get the job, New York City Fire Department, you're not really thinking about some of this stuff 5, 10, 20 years down the line, or is that something that they talk to you about? Obviously, the attacks, this was totally new, something unprecedented and unheard of, but even the smoke, like Marisa, my girlfriend, her uncle Shoe's probably in his 80s, they went into fires without masks on. So those guys are obviously having a certain set of conditions as they get older, where now, that the new technologies came in where you guys could hopefully protect yourself a little bit more. But then now we got this new thing going on here since the attacks where, I mean, what'd you say, 525 was the number for...
We're currently at 525 people, so there's 411 emergency services died the day of, 343 were firemen, and since in 17 years went from 343 to 525, so we've lost 182 to primarily cancer.
Right.
So 16 last year in 2018.
And that's just the reported stuff. I mean, there's other stuff too. We talked about sinusitis, all this other stuff going on in terms of
sinusitis, mostly in like lung issues.
Right.
And they also to get into the PTSD too, which that's a whole nother conversation.
Right. So I mean, it was just that. And then what are they doing in terms of trying to help some guys? I know there's a congressional bill and all that stuff there, but I mean,
World Trade Center health bill is on. So they're, I think in 2016 they said $350 million. So I think you get if they deem you tied to a World Trade Center illness, you can get the free treatment.
Yeah.
But for most of our guys, it really is what it is. So we have a family assistance van. We try to help them out, whether they're retired or current. We get them down to their appointments downtown, so it's tough, it's sad, but
just some of those numbers too. I mean, I think before 9/11 it was 10%. So yeah, if you're a firefighter, you have 10% more likely to develop some form of cancer, and then after it was almost as high as 30%.
Yeah,
20 to 30%, and
we're high to begin with. I mean, like your grandfather said, or was your grandfather?
That's Maurice's uncle. Great uncle.
Said, I mean, back then didn't have masks, but back then what was burning wasn't necessarily as bad.
Yeah.
It was basically your ordinary combustibles, your wood, wool, and now you're getting into all the synthetics and all the chemicals. We have the equipment, we have the gear, but a lot of too they find that is now soaking into your skin. It's getting
What's
into
that? Part of the gear.
Yeah, like a lot of the carcinogens that are getting in the gear. A lot of they say too. There's studies coming out to what the actual gear is made of, but it's getting into all your sensitive, your skin area, like your thyroid, and it's dripping down. And
your head's so vascular, so a lot of it's getting in through your scalp too.
And then even that, I mean, some of those numbers too, like, it wasn't 400 tons of asbestos. Is that what you were saying in the North Tower?
Just the North Tower alone, there's 400 tons of asbestos.
Right. Then you combine that with lead, mercury, jet fuel, burning at whatever temperatures that stuff was burning at. I mean,
and all that too is, it's like when Lyme disease first came about, it manifested itself in so many different ways, and they didn't really test for it. Now they automatically test for it in humans, and I think in pets. But like, people were coming down, and first off, the EPA denied that it was
right. Yeah, I saw that.
Initial studies, and then all these, they started off with the 9/11 cough. People were getting the 9/11 cough from the asbestos, all the chemicals, and now all these diseases and these, like I said, 70 forms of cancer coming out now. It's really,
and that is just people in the emergency services, the numbers you were saying. So then you start talking about the other people that worked close by,
or live.
Like a friend of mine there with Mike. I mean, who even knows? I don't even know if you can put a number on that.
I think they said it's over 500. Was it 500,000 people? Because they said if it was within 1 mile, 1 to 1.5 miles of the radius of the World Trade Center, because it was getting into all the buildings, all the apartment buildings, all the HVAC systems.
Yeah. So
all that had to be cleaned.
Wow.
And initially after the threat, it wasn't a primary concern. So you worried about it down the road, but the problem is you were exposed to this then all along. So, but.
Yeah, that's stuff that I didn't even really know about or even think about, and I don't even know how you would even know about that unless you're in the game and or know somebody that's involved and all that. So, man, all right, man, this is the first time we're gonna try this thing here. I told Matt he could come in with 2 to 3 questions that he could ask.
Well,
he got one in already, so maybe we'll count that one earlier.
Well, we got that as one, so that's 2. So, well, while we're on the mental, I know, What do you attribute to your ability to deal with adversity, to improvise, adapt, to overcome? Because you're a pretty calm, cool guy, and I mean, everybody's got something going on. Everybody has a life story, but you seem to keep it together pretty well. So, growing up, your parents, your mother and your father, good old Glenn, my buddy Glenn, Desi, and then with that, and to growing up in sports, and I know you, based on your first podcast with your brother, what do you believe is you attribute to what made you grow or developed you into where you are now? Is there anything that influenced you primarily, whether it be sports or how you grew up, or and I think too, a lot of personality is
yeah. So I don't know. I think the personality part is just kind of how I am. I've never really. I think you could probably, next time you cross paths with my parents, you'll probably ask them, and like, I don't know what it was, but I never really got too pumped or excited about stuff growing up. I mean, there wasn't like, I didn't really care. I just wore athletic shorts and stuff. I didn't care about clothes. I didn't really care about, putting gel in my hair or stuff like that. It was just kind of my personality. And, growing up, it kind of sucks because it's like, I don't know, it's kind of looked at differently. I was pretty quiet, kept to myself, but it was kind of by choice. Like,
right.
But then you think something's wrong with you kind of when you're growing up, because like you don't want to be out doing this, that, and the other thing. What people call fun, like what's fun for other people is not really fun for me. Like, honestly, I like to sit around and be by myself sometimes. Like, that's just kind of how I've always been.
Return phone calls 4 days later.
I sometimes don't answer Matt's. You got me. No, he's right. He's right. I'm a little slow there. But anyway, so there's that part of it. I don't want to say there's some sort of like, I spent 20 years studying Stoic philosophy, because I haven't. But I like reading stuff like that. Kind of find reasons. Like, I read a book a while back. It was called Quiet by Susan Cain. And it was like, just trying. There's that one. There were some other books I mentioned, other podcasts like Uncommon, just being a little bit different. Like, it's all right to be a little bit different. It's all right to be like an introvert. I started training people. I started coaching people. And they're like, people thought that was a little bit odd because, I just wasn't, everybody sees that raw extroverted guy as being like a leader, but really it's just kind of all show sometimes, and all show, no go sometimes. But anyway, so there's that too. And like the other stuff too is like, it's all, I don't want to say it's a front, but like there's definitely some stuff that bother me. And it's like, like the first podcast, my brother died, and it was just awful for like a year. Like a year after his death, we talked about heart rate and stuff. I mean, I was walking around like my blood pressure was like 150 something over 90. My heart rate was elevated, and I was working out 5-6 days a week. It wasn't a lack of fitness. I was probably working out too much at that point just to kind of like stay active and keep my mind right a little bit. And this was like a year after the fact, so it's like, you saw me that day, you might not know something was going on, but it was kind of tough. So on the flip side though too with that is like, it's not, beat that I am an introvert too is that I don't, like doing these podcasts are great because not only do I get to have awesome guests here, but I get to talk about things, and like a friend that I grew up with, and she knew me since I was like 7. I was like, I'll finally feel like I didn't know you at all, because these are things that you just kind of talk about, and I don't really share stuff with people, so it's like,
So how do you?
So that was tough too. That was probably not the right thing to do. Sorry, go ahead.
And how do you cope on a day-to-day basis, even with your brother? I know you said you got into working.
Yeah, but sometimes no. You know what? I was working out too though before that, because it was like I was probably training people for like 6 years. Mm-hmm. Day-to-day basis coping. I don't know. It just sucks. Sometimes
your girlfriend, you got a child now.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Another added stress.
That's the best. No, I mean that stuff's been the greatest. Like I remember, LJ, our buddy. He has 2 girls that are probably, I think one's in high school and one's probably approaching. He's like asking me just, that whole not sleeping thing when we had a baby and whatever. And it was actually like, it was kind of, granted that stunk. Like we're not getting a lot of sleep. The baby's waking up a lot, whatever. But I felt like a little bit less stressed out, like since we had the baby. And I guess it's usually the opposite with people. I mean, it is obviously stressful at times, but it's also relaxing, and like just to sit down on the couch. And like yesterday before I did a speed camp at a local school with these like young 7 to like 12-year-old softball team in the area, and like I just sat on the couch and the baby was sleeping, and you just kind of sat there and just kind of closed your eyes and relaxed for 20. Like who's doing that stuff? I wasn't doing that before we had her.
No.
And now we have her, and it's like it kind of forces you to relax sometimes. But but the stuff with my brother though, it's like I don't know. There's not you really can do or really cope with. So it's like some days are tougher than others. You sometimes have some dreams and he appears in them and stuff, and then you wake up the next day and those days are a little bit different. But I don't know. I mean, there's really nothing. There's no way around it. I don't think there's any kind of tricks or advice.
Yeah,
it's tough because that really can break somebody down too, though. On the flip side,
yeah,
but you lose a sibling, you lose a child, or something like that. It could. So I guess you have a choice then. Are you gonna let that end your life, so to speak, and not be happy and not live the way that you want to live? I guess. And then people always talk like, what do you think that person would want for you? Stuff like that. So, I mean, he was kind of the one that got me involved in coaching too. So. I coach, and I ended up coaching wrestling again before that, but then I coached wrestling with him for a while, and then I was just, I think it was just kind of time to kind of be done with that sport. But, so, I don't know. Yeah.
The other question I had, too, is I know we've touched on this before, but, like, especially in the tactical population and, where we aren't really good at one thing, but from a physical standpoint, we try to accumulate a bunch of different attributes, whether it's obviously a baseline of strength, your anaerobic, your aerobic condition, flexibility, mobility, speed, and strength being the base of the cornerstone for everything physical, whether it be sports or attacking population, which they really didn't, growing up and even in the academy, they really didn't address, which I know with 350 people, it's tough to really get everybody in squatting and deadlifting. But, even now going into over 40, when is what is enough strength, if that makes sense? Like where do you want it, where you're always providing that stimulus, where you're always providing the progression without I'm never going to be an Olympic
or powerlifting champ, right? So it's like how much do you want to take your deadlift up if you're not going to compete?
Right.
So what's the difference between physically in a day-to-day basis? What are you going to feel different if you have a 425 deadlift or a 400 deadlift? Right. Like when do you say when?
Right.
I don't know. Strong enough. I mean, there's those standards. There's guys that done this stuff a lot more than I have, and you read the same stuff. Think about we're going to be doing an easy strength podcast one day, and we're just going to dive into that book already. Because anyway, say a certain standard 2.5 times your body weight for a deadlift. If you could do that, it's probably good enough. Now, there's some freaks out there that could do 3.5, 4.5, who knows what, deadlift 1,000 pounds even, but that's kind of their specialty. So it's like super specialized, and they're in like a totally different category, I think, too, than people that just like your life requires a lot of different qualities. So the power lifter only requires one quality that they need to get good at,
Right.
and that's those quadrants.
What was
too.
Dan John's
quadrants. So
right.
it's like everybody else. So if you're training, so I would work with high school kids, say a high school football team in the past, and we just wanted to get everybody kind of strong enough. As many kids, I stole more standards I stole from Dan John because he's been doing it for who knows how long. But get as many of your kids to a certain level. Some kids are going to exceed that and be 100 pounds stronger than that, and it's whatever. It's fine. Those kids are fine. You don't have to worry about them too much. But it's like, let's get everybody up. Let's get 20. Say we had 40 kids on the team. Let's get 20 to 30 kids in this, like, varsity level. And then we're probably going to have a pretty strong, good team. All right. So I think you want to get to the good enough stage, and then from there maybe start working on some other qualities. I mean, you see, not to make fun of my 20-minute workout sometimes, but I try to be able to, like, keep my strength at a certain level, but also not dedicate, a lot of time to, getting a 25-pound increase on my deadlift if my deadlift is already good enough.
Right.
Now, everybody's good enough is different. I'm really weak, when looking at other people. There's guys that could do 600 pounds for a bunch, and I don't even know if I lift 500 off the ground. So it's like, everybody's... It's all relative. I mean, honestly, I think you want to feel good. You don't want to run the risk of getting hurt. You want to be strong as possible, but then it's like, all right, check the box on one thing. Try to maintain it. Check in every so often. If it goes down 10 pounds, it goes down 10 pounds.
So if you're sticking right around your 2 to 2.5 on your dead and your 1 to 1.5 on your squat, what does that look like from a program design standpoint? Like you're using that as your max and...
I don't know. So I think you could kind of change the stimulus too on it. Maybe you start using
the variation.
Yeah, or like if you, so it's like it doesn't have to be the main lift, I guess, anymore. You could just check in with it,
Right.
So like if your deadlift's at a certain point, but some other areas that you want to work on, it's not there. Like maybe shift the focus to that.
Yeah.
Check in on your deadlift maybe once a week or every 10 days or something, and then you know what I'm saying. Like you don't have to keep hammering away twice a week.
Right. What was that article too about this from a sports standpoint? Like if you check in and you hit that max effort once every 7 weeks, you'll maintain that strength.
There's like a residual training effect that was like you might only lose like 4%.
Yeah.
So this triphasic book, this guy Cal Dietz, I don't know if we're talking about the same thing, but I think it fits here. But it's like certain qualities you'll hit them, absolute strength, trying to get as strong as possible, and then power. So there's like moderate weight, but you're moving it for speed, and then there's lightweight that you're moving as fast as possible. So you could cycle through that. So let's say the training effect from the strength days, you could take 30 days. It was even more than 30 days. I think it was like 39 days was and then plus minus a few days here and there in either direction. But you could not train those strength attributes for like say 30 days, and the residual training effects that you've had 30 days prior, they're still going to be there.
Right.
You might only see a 1 to 2% decrease. When you exceed that, that's when I think you might see that 4%. But either way, it's still 4%. So you could kind of cycle through, do the strength stuff. Then for 10 to 15 days, you could work on the next quality. 10 to 15 days work on that other quality, and then you circle back to the strength stuff, and your levels are still going to be close enough there. But then now you increased your power and you increase your ability to move weight, like lighter weights fast. So, and then you phase in there too, and it's just kind of an variation. And I think you're going to probably get longer, more success than just trying to beat your head off the wall lifting heavy all the time.
Right.
Not that, I mean, that's some serious programming stuff too that I don't know too much about. But that book was like pretty eye-opening to the point where I'm like, I got to read this thing again because like I was only scratching the surface. I took some stuff out of it and applied it to some kids I worked with, and it worked pretty well. But
that's a triphasic.
It is, yeah. It's a science book, really. It's not an easy read by any means. I mean, it's this thick and it's like a text, like a college text almost. But good stuff. It goes back to like Soviet Union stuff in the 70s and all that stuff, and there's a lot of info, minus the juice, the science, not the juice part of it, but. Yeah. So yeah, there's some residual training effects. You don't have to just touch back, circle back to those qualities every so often. Make sure you still got it. Move on. Eventually, though, I mean, I guess you just got to be disciplined with that approach.
Yeah.
And if you end up missing 65 days, then you might see a greater decrease. Which, who knows? You might not even be able to get back to where you want to get back to. So.
Well, the last question I have too is I know it's. To myself and the job I do, and then being over 40, so it's just, for me now it's transition to like a healthy lifestyle and be able to move And for me, last year, between you and I know LJ has touched on it, was the intermittent fasting, which is kind of a big game changer for me.
Yeah.
So
it's a fad, though, bro.
It's what? It's a fad. Yeah.
Hey, some guy told Matt this was a fad, and I was like, Jesus was doing it, man.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a fad. It's been around for a while.
And did you look into the was the Warrior Diet? There's an Israeli, I think Israeli defense guy started too. And
those guys are crazy, right?
Yeah,
there's special services over there.
The IDF. I don't know what the special services are, but the IDF. But anyway, he started this like eating. I guess it's almost like intermittent fasting, but where you're very few or reduced calorie intake. And just talking to me and reading what hear from you and LJ, and for me it was from not having to eat all day and emptying out your whole your digestive system and your desired lean muscle mass, and I guess it's primarily done for hormonal reasons too, especially in
but I think in that case too, with somebody else that comes in the gym, their whole thing was to it was a testosterone thing, right? He was trying to get his testosterone or hormone levels back to where they should be.
Yeah, because males over 30, 35, they reduce significantly, and you can go on I guess there's medication to boost up your natural production. If not, you have to go to supplementation, and then you really can't go off of it.
Right.
But they said the only really way to boost it up is a high-fat diet and intermittent fasting. So I think his one from, I'm not quite sure the numbers. I think they were 800's ideal. He was at 320. They went up to 710 in 8-9 months. Wow. So, but your thoughts on that and athletes and just how it affected your life, I guess. 'Cause I know
you were talking about those cookies earlier. So with the all or nothing approach that I have in life, when I eat, I'm probably going to eat too much. So probably a huge serving. So then the intermittent fasting, I just kind of took this other stuff, and why I call it time restricted eating, I don't know. I mean, it is fasting, but it's just kind of flipping the switch, and I'll front load everything and kind of eat in the morning. Once 2 o'clock or something like that hits.
You do it opposite, like I do it opposite of Frank. Frank does. We hit it on the back end.
Right, I hit it on the front end, and I got that from one of Rhonda Patrick's podcasts. I think just to explain it, maybe the easiest way was your body's going to be more efficient in the mornings to handle some stuff. Where if you do deviate a little bit and eat something you shouldn't. Something maybe high carb that you don't. Anyway, your body's able to process this stuff a little bit better in the mornings than it would be later, because you're talking hormone levels and all this stuff from being up all day. You start to get tired. Things start to change. In your body. So if I just eat it up front when I'm fresh and things are operating at full capacity, maybe I'll process that stuff a little bit better. So that's why I do that. Then the afternoons I get busy, so I just kind of give myself the afternoon off, and it's not every day, because if I get an afternoon off and we want to get some dinner, then I'm going to eat dinner, just because it's not common that I don't go to work in the afternoon. But
I guess it's a real gray area too, whether you front load and then you don't find yourself getting fatigued throughout the day.
No, I don't know, but I'll drink tea and I'll have coffee too. I don't know. I'm sure that helps with that. But
they say some people have problems backloaded to sleeping at night too.
That's literally why I didn't want to. So it's I wanted to figure out ways. I wanted to sleep better, right? So I tried these supplements I talked about in the other podcast, but also I don't want to be digesting food overnight. Right. So I want to give my gut to rest, and just because the whole gut bacteria and gut health is a huge thing. So it's that was a thing, that was a concern of mine. So it's if I'm constantly digesting food, I might have some inflammation in there. I'm trying to bring the inflammation levels down.
Which they were linking all the inflammation to the heart disease too, right?
It's they looked at, I don't know the numbers or the study off the top of my head, but it's people that live to be from 90 to 100, and then from 100 to 110, they looked at, their blood work, and their levels of inflammation in their blood was just significantly lower. So there was some study, and I don't know it, I'd have to look it up, but it's if you want to live long, basically that was the conclusion, is keep your inflammation levels down if you want to live a long, healthy lifestyle, because all the disease comes from inflammation.
Right.
So,
and they say from a cancer standpoint too, they were saying about it breaking down or destroying cancer cells. Basically, you're starving them out. So
no, that's a cool part too. Well, that diet, the ketogenic diet, which is high fat, and it almost is like fasting, mimicking it. But even with dogs, there's a ranch in Texas. I forget the name of it, but they'll put these dogs on that have terminal cancer, and they'll put them on a ketogenic diet, and the cancer cells will just start to diminish, because you're not feeding these cancer cells with foods. You're starving them, I guess, in a sense. So then they just starve and they die. So I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting stuff, and I'm not an expert on it by any means. But you have something too. There's good and there's bad. So I might have talked with Frank on this one. A couple years ago, Ray Lewis got hit with a football player. You got, this deer antler spray that's supposed to boost IGF-1, which is insulin-like growth factor. So the insulin, whatever. So basically, it's going to make you. It's a performance enhancer. Say if you have high levels of that IGF-1 post-workout, whatever. Who knows? You might build some more muscle, get stronger, whatever it is. I don't even know. But also high levels of IGF-1. It feeds, say, muscle growth. It's also going to feed cancer growth. So if you're pumping this stuff in your body, it's going to feed that cancer cell and make that expand too. So it's like starving. You do this fasting stuff. Give your body a chance to recover, rest up, and hopefully keep the inflammation levels down. You're not going to feed disease. I don't know. I don't get sick too often. I'm around germs a lot. I don't even know if I'm lucky, or if it's something I'm doing in my everyday life. But I don't know. If there's something out there that I think I could apply and make it happen, then, and it allows me to still eat big meals, because I'm only going to eat probably twice, but I'll still snack. You guys give me a bunch of crap, I'll probably eat like 600 to 1,000 calories of nuts in a day probably. So I mean, I'll have like a pretty high calorie snack, but it's like something like nuts and who knows what else, maybe hard-boiled eggs or whatever, but then I'll eat 2 big meals and be good to go. So
That's what I find myself doing as well. So a little bit more room for forgiveness when I'm normally eating for a 4 or 6 hour block. Yeah. So I try to do like the 16 to 18 hour fast 5 days a week. So
yeah, I try to keep a 10-hour window. 8 would be cool, but it's usually 10. So I'll eat those first 10 hours, but then I'll kickstart it with whatever I drink that's not water. So that was another thing from the Rhonda Patrick stuff, where it was like, I think it was Walter Longo or Sachin Panda. Those are the guys, and I forget which one said it, but it's like once you have that non-water drink, so if you wake up and have coffee at 5 a.m., that's when the clock starts. So for me, say from that point then, 10 hours would put me at 3 p.m.
So they're saying coffee breaks it.
They're not calling it fasting, though. So I don't want to say coffee breaks the fast. They would just say coffee starts your clock for your eating window.
Okay.
Just to like not use the term fasting, because I talked to Frank about this, and it's not arguments, we're just kind of messing with each other, but it's like, I'll tell him coffee or tea breaks his fast, and he's like, no, it doesn't, and he'll name 3 researchers, I'll name 3, they combat each other, and that's just kind of how it goes. But yeah, so I'll just say it starts your eating window, we'll call it. Okay. But if I did a 24-hour fast, I'm drinking coffee and tea during it probably. Okay. Just I don't know why, but yeah, I haven't done it in a while. Maybe I'll try to bring those back. But what else you got, man? Anything else?
That was my 3 limit.
Yeah, I cut it at 3. I was gonna say, yeah, that's good. But now it's time. It's Fiegel time. What do you got? You got any questions for us, man? Did we miss anything? Anything you want us to go into more?
Nothing today. No.
Yeah. It's all good.
It's good.
So guys, man, this is there's a ton of places where you could find this. Right, we're gonna be on YouTube. We'll get this thing up and running there. We have Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes. Nope. Yep, iTunes.
Yep. It's Spotify.
Spotify.
And the website.
ChrisFluckPodcast.com, man. That's it, Matt. Thanks for coming on, brother. It was fun. See you guys.